Hi, I'm Joshua Friedman, writer and director of The Queen's Jewels, and I'm here to welcome you to the C-Suite Executive Edge series. C-Suite is a premier global community of female executives focusing on amplifying the voices of female leadership and creating connectivity between commerce and culture. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing this series session, which features two of my favorite women, Linda Duncombe, the executive producer of our film, The Queen's Jewels, and Beth Rabishaw, formerly of The Hollywood Reporter. A special thank you to Beth Hilbing and Diane Gubin, the founders of C-Suite, for making this possible. Please enjoy.
Hello, everyone. As you know, I'm Beth Rabishaw, and I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be here today with my good friend, Linda. I've had the privilege, a little bit about myself, by the way, I've had the privilege of spending over 30 years in the media and entertainment business. I'm continually amazed by the power of storytelling and the incredible talent that brings those stories to life. My personal journey has taken me through some fascinating roles, from radio to television to publishing, and I recently spent the last 14 and a half years with The Hollywood Reporter, the last 4 of which I served as EVP and publisher, where I had the opportunity to work with some of the most influential figures in the industry. It was an incredible experience. I led global advertising strategies and forging key partnerships, really got to see the inner workings of how stories get made and shared. So during that time, though, I was also very passionate about creating content under the THR moniker, which led me to executive produce a project like Emmy nominated, I should say, Off Script with The Hollywood Reporter. You should look for that on both YouTube and AMC Plus and IFC. Just to tell you a little bit about it, it's a roundtable series that creates meaningful conversations and highlights the incredible talent within the industry. But beyond my professional work, I also serve on the board of governors of Shine Global, which is a nonprofit film and television production company telling stories of children's resilience. I must say, we were recently nominated for an Oscar for Best Live Action Short category for Anuja. Sadly, we did not win, but it is absolutely wonderful. It's the story of 2 sisters working in a back alley garment factory where one is suddenly faced with a rare opportunity that really will determine the fate of her future and her family's. If you're interested, you can find it on Netflix. So as I wrap up this part, I want to just let you know that these are some of the experiences that have shaped my perspective and really reinforced my belief in the power of connection and storytelling, which brings us to why we're so excited for this conversation with Linda today. So now, let me tell you that it is beyond my pleasure to welcome Linda Duncombe. She is truly energetic and vivacious person. I knew from our first meeting that we'd be good friends, and of course we are. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Her story is one of incredible journeys and real passion for connecting with people. She recently left a remarkable 35-year career navigating the world of banking and global marketing, but with a real heart for creativity and community. Linda's career is a testament to versatility and impactful leadership. She has driven innovation from establishing Citi's fintech division to deploying technology with governments worldwide. In her last 6 years at CNB, which is known to be the bank to the stars, and you'll see that connection, she forged strategic partnerships with key entertainment organizations like SAG-AFTRA, the Recording Academy, and the Motion Picture Television Fund. By the way, during the pandemic, she also led the development of critical technology, delivering $1.8 billion in PPP loans to support the entertainment industry. So woohoo for that. Recognized by Variety as one of Hollywood's most powerful women for 5 consecutive years, and also awarded the Medal of Order of Australia. Pretty huge. Linda's impact is undeniable. She serves on the boards of SAG-AFTRA Foundation, the Grammy Museum, Habitat for Humanity, all showing her real commitment to community and the arts. Beyond her established profession, though, Linda is now executive producer of the soon-to-be-released film, The Queen's Jewels. That clearly demonstrates her expanding career. I'm very excited to explore her journey and dive into what prompted that exciting change. So please join me in welcoming the queen of the Queen's Jewels and one of my favorite people, Linda Duncombe. All right. So, first question. Many people dream of a career change. I know I'm going through a transition myself, but few actually make it happen. It takes a lot of guts. What was the pivotal moment where you decided to pursue film?
Yeah, and first, Beth, Emmy-nominated superstar, my friend who I love dearly, thank you for doing this. And to the C-suite team, Beth, Diane, who I sit on some of the boards there. It's just a fantastic group of people. So thank you so much for having me today. The first question from my dear friend, Beth. I had left the bank, a wonderful time. I'm still a client. I love the bank. I love the people, client, community, colleagues. It's very focused. And I wanted to spend some more time at home with my mum in Australia. And I was about to go over for a few months, and I had just decided to be a very small investor in the Queen's Jewels, and the writer, director, the absolute heartbeat of this film, who I call my little brother, they are my American family, Josh Friedman, and I were on a phone call last night after one of the investors asking me to take a look at the financials. And I was like a pig in mud. I was so happy, like pulling out the financials, because that was my background. I was actually in core banking before I got into the marketing side of things. And I started to have a conversation with him, and one of the producers had suggested to Josh that maybe I come on as the executive producer. And I think Josh was trying to allow me to have that break and said, look, I don't know if that's the right move for her right now. He actually said, absolutely not. And then it was a couple of days later when we were on the phone, and he's like, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I would love for you to be the executive producer. You know, would you give that some thought? I'm going to run it by the other investors, and why don't you come on board? And before the call was over, I was already thinking about the conversation I was going to have with my mum, who would be so excited. Yeah. And Josh made the call to the investors. You know, I went through an interview process, and I came on as the executive producer, and super excited to do it. I feel like it was my calling.
Yeah, that's it. Of course, it's family now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the skills that you honed as CMO in the banking industry. And particularly at, the bank to the stars. How has that translated into your role as an executive producer?
Yeah, I was really lucky. At the bank, I oversaw a lot of the philanthropy, all of the philanthropy and our sponsorships. And so I got to know some wonderful people in the industry, and I saw how the bank really lent in to help those communities, and so made some great relationships, and could see as a CMO, my background, as I said, was core banking, and I moved into marketing because I really wanted to see how, as a marketer, I could be more in contact with the clients or the communities that we wanted to serve. And so it was very important to me that if you're going to speak to a client base or a target audience, that you actually have spoken to them so you know what they want. And so with the movie, what I loved is it's a movie that makes no political or religious statements. It's a movie to completely entertain. It's a treasure hunt. I call it Indiana Jones on water. It's for the whole family. And what I saw as a CMO was I'm very analytic and data-driven, and I saw an opportunity with this film, and so I was able to use those skill sets to bring into the creative side of making a movie.
Very good. So this is going to be an interesting one. The cultures between the two. What would you say are the largest differences between a banking culture and a filmmaking culture?
Yeah. It's such a good question, Beth, because I think it might surprise people. It's not that different. What I saw in banking for many decades and what I've seen in the movie business is a lot of very passionate people, very hardworking people with a deep expertise in their chosen field. And so what I saw in banking was very committed people working incredibly hard. And the same in the movie business. What I would say in the movie business is you have to be a little bit more entrepreneurial or kind of pivot the plane in the air. Yeah. We would be on set and something would happen that would be a weather condition or something to that effect that you just can't plan for, and you've got to pivot. Like you've got hundreds of people relying on you. There's cameras set up, and you have to make a decision. I didn't experience that kind of in the moment as much in banking as I did in the film and making the film and being on set, which was really cool. But it wasn't as different as I think even I was surprised to see. It was just really hardworking, compassionate people wanting to be a part of something bigger than themselves, which really talks to me.
So I have to say, pivot the plane in the air. First time I've ever heard that. It's so descriptive. And that leads me to my next question, which is, what do you find the biggest challenges to be in producing today?
Yeah, it being like someone who is very fortunate to be involved in a lot of the charities that you mentioned that I sit on the board of or that I love. There was the tragedy for the world of COVID. Then there was the strikes that were devastating for the industry.
Yeah.
And then for us in California, we just went through a horrific experience with the fires. And all of these things have had enormous impact on the industry. And during all of that, there was a lot of disruption as technology changed on how people were being served up content. And I don't think there's been a steady state for probably since 2019.
Yeah.
And you've seen that more than anyone, Beth, and you've seen it with your role at the Hollywood Reporter. And what I see is there's a lot of uncertainty, especially around funding right now, especially with independents. But there is a huge demand for content, especially content that people can just escape and enjoy themselves. And so I'm really hoping that the demand will pull and people will start to lean in again. But it's just been such a tough time with so many things that you just cannot plan for. There's no playbook for that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, who ever thought that we would go through all of these things at one time? Let's go a little bit into your backstory. Your ability to adapt and thrive in such different environments, obviously very remarkable. But I'm curious as to where that drive and resilience came from. I do know, because I love you and I know you, I do know that your parents were a significant inspiration. So can you tell me a story about a specific lesson you learned from them or a moment that they demonstrated a quality that, you deeply admired?
Yeah. I really do think that my secret power or my superpower is still my mum and dad. Although my dad has passed, my mum's still very much alive and is my biggest cheer squad. And I didn't know as a child just the poverty that we lived in. We lived in government housing. While there was no money, there was a lot of love and support in our family. And so I grew up in the view and belief that there was nothing that we couldn't do, my brother or I, if we chose to do it and we put our minds to it. And so I was very, very lucky to grow up in a very happy family. And still often think about just the gratitude I have for the sacrifices as a child. I didn't realise that I saw my parents give so my brother and I could live our best lives. Yeah. And they did it with love and happiness and just wanting to see their kids be their best versions of themselves. And I think one of the lessons that I often think about this, actually, especially when I made the transition in my career, was the sacrifices I saw my parents make. So my parents were hardworking people, but they did not make a lot of money. And when my pop got sick, they brought him into our family home because there was nowhere for my pop to go. And I saw my parents have less food on their plate or possibly go without a dinner. But my brother and I never saw that, and we always had really clean clothes and things that kind of kept us in sync with other kids. But I saw my parents wearing the same shoes for years and years and years. And I think what I learned about that is, while it's nice to have nice things, what really counts at the end of the day is, your imprint you leave on the world and the people that you love. And while my dad's not alive, I love them so much, much.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like they really kept you in such a beautiful protective bubble, as you need to do with your children, right?
Yeah.
They should not grow up too quickly.
Yeah.
Sounds like you were very lucky.
I was very lucky. And you'll meet my mum next week. Next month, sorry. And she knows all about you. And when I get worked up about something that is so trivial in the big scheme of things, my mum will be very graceful. And she'll say, "Baby, you do important work, but you're not saving lives." And she's right.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Thanks,
We're not
Mom."
curing cancer?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, exactly.
All
Thanks,
right.
Mom.
I understand. Okay, well, so let's move on to mentors.
Yeah.
So who were some of your first mentors? How did you meet them? And how did they, help to inspire you? And I've got some follow-ups, but I'll let you start with that.
I love it. So I would first have to say, my whole life, my parents have been mentors and role models to me about being a good person and paying things forward if you have the benefit to support other people, support people, be a kind person. And so they continue to be huge influences on my life. And it's interesting, I was asked this similar question when I was telling someone that I'm actually not naturally an extrovert. I had to learn to be authentic.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm an introverted extrovert. I mean, you do those Myers-Briggs surveys, I'm always one or two either way on that spectrum. And when I was very young, I was a very shy, awkward child. And I know it's horrifying.
I'm going to have to ask your mother about this.
I know she's going to tell you, like, I would like literally hide behind my mum or my dad's legs. And I was also tiny. Like, I didn't kind of start really shooting up until I was like 16 years old. And it was my English teacher, his name is Mr. Stalder. And my parents went to him and said, she's so bright, but she's so shy. And he said, put her into acting classes, like let her find an outlet. And I found this one.
That's the earliest connection then.
Yeah, it is. I was like 11 years old, and then I started to play instruments, and I mean, it was as big as me, but I loved the trombone. I actually picked one up for the first time in like probably 20 years, just before Christmas, and we celebrate Christmas in Australia, and I was surprised it was like riding a horse, I guess, but yeah. I can't play anymore, but I could still make a sound. I was very relieved. It would have been embarrassing, but I was very grateful for Mr. Stalder seeing that what I just needed was an outlet to find my voice. And I think about that very often, and she might even be watching from Australia, but one of my oldest friends, Michelle Duncombe, who lost her mum suddenly and then lost her dad suddenly, all before the age of 21, and just how she held herself in the regard that she put towards being a really good person and leaving a positive imprint, and the wonderful mother she is to her two children. And I think about just what she had to go through, too young to be going through those kinds of things, but she chose to be happy and she chose to live, and I see those kinds of aspects as role models. And just one quick other example, when I was 9, I would watch Wonder Woman and Charlie's Angels. Like I would tell my dad, why does Linda Carter spell her name wrong? Because she spells it with a Y and I spell it with an I.
Right.
But I watched those shows, and I would turn to my parents saying, I'm going to go to New York when I grow up, and I did.
Right.
And so very lucky to have lots of positive role models in my life, people I knew and people I admired on the TV.
Sure. Well, let me ask you, do you have any mentors now in the entertainment business as you're, transitioning your career?
It's. I mean, these are all such good questions. Thank you, Beth. When I joined City National, I was very fortunate to work with a woman who retired around the time I left, Martha Henderson, who ran the entertainment business. And I often say to people, I went to the school of Martha Henderson. It's very important to respect and protect the privacy of people that work in the industry and clients in general. And Martha has continued to be a dear friend of mine who I catch up with on a regular basis, who I love, and has just such great practicality in her advice. And through the charities that I have loved, I got to meet Sherry Lansing, who is a legend in the industry.
Absolutely.
And a very humble, wonderful person. And you would know her from the Hollywood Reporter Women's events, with the Sherry Lansing Award. And just a lovely, lovely person who, will often check in. We always speak, and someone who has really been a champion in my corner, and very grateful for both of those very strong women who had very different roles in the industry but have been incredibly supportive to me.
Yeah, but two huge women.
Powerhouses,
yeah. Within the industry.
Yeah.
So, okay, now looking back, well, let me ask you this question first. I know that you've been to Davos twice.
I have.
And I mean, that's just so aspirational, I would say, for everybody here.
Thank you.
These are events like that, obviously, are often very male-dominated environments. So, how would you say, living in a very male-dominated world, and that having been your career, how has that, what are those challenges like, and how has that then prepared you for your newest challenges that you're going through now?
Yeah, I have been to the World Economic Forum twice. I was very lucky. I went with Citi, that wonderful organisation that fulfilled that 9-year-old girl's dream of bringing her to New York. I'm always grateful for them. And I worked with wonderful people, Stephen Bird, Yolanda Piazza, Patrick McCarthy, people that I was able to go to Davos with. But you're right, it's very male-dominated. And I really felt it in banking. I was often the first at a certain grade or level, and I was really smacking up against that ceiling and
Yes.
trying to break glass, and often sometimes not sure how to navigate some of that, to be honest, as a young woman in her 30s. I would say that I was very lucky when I came to Citibank in the US. All of my bosses were women.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. Wonderful people. Michelle Pluso, Heather Cox, Yolanda Piazza, wonderful women, and a lot of my peers were women. It was just a naturally diverse group of people that reflected the audiences we were trying to serve. And even at CMB, some wonderful men and women that I worked for. Very, very lucky. And so I have been very fortunate when I came to the US to probably see more diversity than I had originally seen in my career. And in the film, it was just naturally diverse. I was very lucky. And as the EP, I was very pleased just to see that natural diversity kind of play out.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
So looking back, though, I want to ask, was there ever a time that you felt that you did not advocate for yourself as well as you would have liked to? And I only ask that now because I'm wondering if any of that would be connected to having come up in a male-dominated industry. But it may not have. So just any time that you learned something from and that you would have advocated better.
Yeah, and it's such a good question because I think if you ask people that worked for me that have in any part of my career, they will say that Linda's like a mother bear. Like she protects her team. But I'm not great at advocating for myself, and I think about how to be better at that, advocating for myself. And there was and a little melancholy, and we can pivot, but it's a really important one that I think people understand. It was the day of my brother's funeral, and people that I worked with knew that I was at my brother's funeral. He had been sick, but he had passed suddenly, and I was with my mum helping her get out of a car. And my phone rang, and I saw the number. I'm like, oh, I know that area code. It's not Australia, but I'm going to pick it up. And I was asked because I was meant to be overseas, and I was asked if I wanted to join a call to do a presentation later that day because it would be really important because I knew the data best. I said to that person on the phone, but I'm at my brother's funeral helping my mother out of a car. There may have been some swear words, which I won't say today. Just shock, like complete shock. And that person goes, oh, no, we just thought we'd check. No, you go back to what you need to do. You be with your family. And I thought to myself, there should have been a conversation after that day where I sat that person down. I thought, what the hell did you think in any scenario that was going to be an okay call to make? Like it was completely a breach of privacy.
Why would you even put me in the position of having to give you an answer on that?
And I could for anyone, I'm not a parent, but for anyone who's a parent, nobody wants to outlive their child. My mum's watching this play out with her only child. Like me, it's a point in time where I say to myself, and I advocate almost obsessively now for my team, family and health first, because you won't remember the meeting you missed, but you remember the moment with your family that you were not there.
Absolutely.
And that's what drives that for me. And I don't know if a lot of people that have worked for me know what was that passion point that was behind that mantra for me. Like it's never going to be a meeting that's important enough to take something from you and your family.
It's so important. And I do believe as women, since we oftentimes have to work harder to prove ourselves, that a call like that, probably 50% of the most successful, wonderful women, badass women out there, might have said yes because they were put in that position and might have felt like they had to do it to prove something. So good for you.
Thank you.
For standing up and really important stuff. Okay, so I'll ask you a little bit more about you personally.
Hit me, Beth. I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready for a pivot.
All right. Do you like to follow rules? Are you a rule follower? Do you like to challenge them? And any specific instances of not following any rules that you'd like to share?
Could you, I'm so glad that I'm answering that question and you're not answering it for me, Beth, because you could probably tell some cracking stories. I'll give a really good one where I think I like rules and I like to understand what is the policy, whether it's the organization or the environment or if it's the law. Because once you know where the rail guards are, you can run. It's when you're not sure where the guards are that you don't know how to run. And I will say, like, when and you mentioned it in your intro, which was so kind, about the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. That was a government trying truly to help people that desperately needed funding. And it was a whole process where the loan would, if you met certain criteria, the loan could be forgiven.
Yeah.
And what we found was a lot of people trying to work out how to get access to those funds. And we saw clients just really hemorrhaging trying to work this out. And with a gentleman in my team who at the time, his name is Joaquin, we used to call him Yoda, and Patrick McCarthy and some other people, we sat down and we said, there's just no solution to this. And we brought in some clients. I'm a big believer of co-creation. And so we brought in some clients, and a lot of them were from entertainment because it's a unique model where there's usually an intermediary supporting the end client. And we said, how do we get access to these funds for you? And we built the rails on Salesforce. Yeah. So we used the Salesforce rails and we built this whole portal that allowed people to get access to these funds. And that's how we were able to help get that 1.8 billion. But I did get pushback. There was a lot of external consultants saying that they could do this, and and there was some risk for the bank to support me in those endeavors. And I had wonderful support from the leadership, from Russell Goldsmith, from Kelly Coffey, saying, let's do this. We need to get this money to our clients and to those in our communities. And so I am definitely rules driven. I think it's also very Australian culture to be very rules driven. But I will ask why. I have a curiosity that I have not lost since I was a child. And so if someone's saying this is just how it is, I'm like, but why? If our client is telling us it's not making sense, but why are we still doing it that way? Yeah. And I'll always be grateful for Salesforce supporting us and the wonderful team that I had. And there was a wonderful technology team. We couldn't have done it without them. The bank was a village that got together and supported the clients and the communities in their most desperate time of support and need. Yeah. And I'm incredibly proud to have been one of the leaders of that.
Yes, something you should be very proud
Thank
of for
you.
sure. Okay, so let's talk about some of your favorite phrases.
Yeah.
I will tell you one of mine. Everyone that knows me will know that I am much more in favor of begging for forgiveness than asking for permission.
Oh my gosh, that's so you, Beth, in the best way though.
That's right. So tell me, do you have a favorite phrase?
Gosh, I do, and I touched on one of them a little earlier. I really have this mantra: health and family first.
Yes.
It's really important if you want to be the best version of yourself in your life, whether it's work or personal. You absolutely need to take care of yourself and the people that you love the most.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing a story once of an executive in Australia where she said it was her child's end of year school play, and Christmas is a huge holiday in Australia, so we call it the Christmas holidays. And her child was in an alphabet program, and he was E for elephant. And she stepped out to get a phone call, thought she could be back in time, and didn't get back. She missed it. And this child's now in college when I saw her speak about this, and she still talks about it. That was the imprint it left on her.
Yeah.
And I truly believe if you want to ask your team to really go above and beyond, lift, like in times with COVID when we were all working 7 days a week, we had a 24-hour roster getting stuff done. People need to know that when they really need the time, that you're there for them. Yeah. And so health and family first for me is something that I really kind of live by. And then for me personally, and again, my curiosity, sometimes people would call it irritation. I think it's curiosity. What if? What if I didn't do that? And I think about that as that shy little girl who said she wanted to go to New York. Well, when it happened, it was in 2015, and my brother had passed in 2014. And my mum's like, you have to go do it, and my dad had died in 98, and my parents are only children. There's no aunties or uncles. It's a tiny little family. And I have two wonderful nephews and a niece, and now a great nephew. That makes me sound really old, but my nephew's young. It for me was a big moment. Well, what if you don't go, Linda? What are you going to do? This was the dream of a little girl, go live in New York. And I didn't really know anybody when I got there. And, I've often done that. I would prefer to try and to learn, because I don't believe in fail. I think everything is as a learning experience.
Yeah.
I would prefer to try and to learn than to never try and think, what if? And so a lot of my friends will say what if? And people who know me very closely and as you do, Beth, and Mikey, a dear friend who's behind the camera, it's not as big a shock for my friends when I made the transition into making films, because my love and passion for life. I want to remain I'm an adult, I get that, but there's still a little part of that girl in me that lives every day and lives because, and not with this is not a sense of responsibility or weight to it. Like, my dad died of a heart attack that was misdiagnosed. My brother was waiting for a transplant. These are two of the biggest male influences in my life and people that I love dearly. My dad was my absolute best friend. So I choose to wake up and live the best version of myself. So I don't want to be scared to not try.
Right. I have to say, I think that curiosity is one of the most important factors in success.
Yeah.
And it makes you so much more interesting as well, because you're always, expanding your knowledge. Similarly, you say, what if I'm someone, it's almost the same thing, but I say, why not? Like, why say
That's
why?
great.
Why stop there? Why not say why not?
I love that.
Of course, this is one of the
This
reasons
is why we're great friends.
friends.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
right.
I love it.
Okay, so my queen, let's talk a little bit more about the Queen's Jewels.
Yeah.
Tell me one of your most unexpected challenges that you faced, in bringing Queen's Jewels to completion.
Yeah, it has been my own adventure of a lifetime. Something that I'm so grateful that Josh has brought me in on. The little brother that I love so very very much. I think it was how many people kind of doubted we could do it. Like, I call him Batman and he's Robin, and there's something about how people doubted us. Like, we were only talking about this over dinner yesterday. We continue to be very respectful and observant and inclusive, and people go, wow, this is like one of the best experiences I've had, and like, wow, we didn't think you'd get there, we didn't think you'd do it. Like, oh wow, you're about to show the film, and we're like, yeah, like, well, we knew we were going to do it. We always knew. We didn't realize that there were so many people that were so doubtful that we could do it, and that was and having conversations when someone would say, well, this is how we've always done things, and that's in every industry. And we're like, but we're going to be really respectful to the industry and the mentors and the people that were supporting us, and there was many, including you, Beth, and but at the same time, why? Well, why not? Like, and so I think for us, and for me in particular, I was so surprised by how many people doubted us.
Yeah.
And for those people, I hope they celebrate with us that we're here, and it's a wonderful time.
Celebrate, and I'm sure some might be a little envious or jealous. I think the really true thing here is that you never doubted yourself.
Yeah.
I think that you probably thought, shame on me if I do so. And so good for you.
Thank you.
And we just hate the haters.
No. It's true. It's true.
So, of course, obviously, filmmaking can require creative approaches, shall we say. Anything particularly unconventional or unexpected that you had to do, or even maybe absurd in achieving this goal? And maybe it was around securing funding, maybe it was around accounting, but anything sort of crazy or unexpected that you wound up doing?
Yeah. I give two examples here. One being like actually on location, which was incredible. And some of the film was filmed in the Dominican Republic. I mean, to Josh's credit, we filmed in multiple countries. We've made this movie in multiple countries under his leadership, and it's been a phenomenal experience. And, I say it's like Indiana Jones on water, and there was this a couple of days of filming without giving anything away, and we were deep down in like caves, and like we're bringing down all the equipment. It's going over in these water kind of like raft, like not quite boat things, and it felt like we were actually in a movie, making the movie. And you're looking around, and I'm thinking like, this time last year I was probably sitting in an office in a suit, and now I'm like in 100 degrees temperature with 100% humidity, and like I'm wearing, like T-shirts, shorts, wiping my brow, drinking my 10th bottle of water, and it's only like 10 o'clock in the morning, making a movie, like with the whole cast who were fantastic.
I
just
bet
great
that felt
sports.
absurd.
Yeah, just absurd and surreal, like just so crazy. And the financing piece was very, very difficult. I can only speak on behalf of what we did, but when we first started raising funds, it was really, really hard. And what we found quickly was everybody's fishing from the same pond, and there's no more fish in that pond.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. And so,
like we were discussing earlier.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so all of our investors are very successful, very smart business people that have not invested in movies before, but saw an opportunity with the kind of genre that we wanted this film to be. And so all of our funding came from outside of what was typical of where independent films had sourced funding. And the beauty about that is when we sit down, as we're now in that process of looking for sales and distribution, and people are asking us, do we need funding to help finish the film and whatnot? And we go, no, we're fully funded. We have our tax credits, we have the investor funding. And they'll go, and then they'll ask the question 3 different ways. And I kind of laugh and go, it doesn't really matter how you ask the question. We got the money. We just want to now finish the film. And so credit too, to Josh and I in being able to do that. But it truly shocks people when we say we're an absolute independent film and we are fully funded.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Any stories to share about who you went after and how you were able to bring in people that were not traditional film funders?
Yeah, it's I was very, very fortunate that there was a small level of funding that was already involved in the film before I came on board, and we were able to learn a lot from what attracted him to getting involved in films, and then really catering our presentations to a different audience. And so it was very finance driven around what's the ROI, what are the mitigating factors for any kind of overages, which is very common in filmmaking. There's just things you can't control. And so this is where I think my banking background, and not like the recent years of being in kind of marketing and whatnot, but my background when I managed big portfolios in banking really kicked in and was able to be helpful. Our investment presentations were very finance driven. We're very driven on the very multiple different scenarios of what could go well and what could go wrong. They were incredibly conservative on the returns because we wanted it to be kind of like managing expectations and hopefully under promise and then hugely over deliver.
Yes.
And with all of those analytics, introducing to investors the movie magic of, and so having some beautiful visuals of where Josh had been on one of the scouts and had some beautiful pictures of how we were going to bring this to life. And while I would often talk the business, understanding the creative side, having Josh involved to talk about the characters and some of the people we were talking about, the cast and the incredible cast that we had. And at this point, as we were still raising funds, we had started some of those conversations. So being able to talk about some of the kind of people we were thinking about that could be in these roles. And it's something that you said in your intro, Beth. I think the importance of storytelling is more important than ever. And even as a successful business person, everybody loves a story.
Yes.
And so finding that balance between finance and storytelling, to the point where we've helped a couple of friends and shared how we put our presentations together, and being able to cater. It's not, you can't be sensitive to feedback in this process because you get many more no's than you do yeses. And so really listening to the feedback, again, going to my background in data and analytics, why did this resonate? Why did this not resonate? How do we fine tune this, and just continue to fine tune until we were able to raise all the funds?
So it's really interesting. You were able to make a business that is more conceptual and more gambling on it. It's like a bet, right? But you, with your, career and your experience level, you were able to bring real data and analytics to it, which then obviously made those folks feel much more comfortable.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
That's great. That's very cool. Let me ask you, when you look back at your journey from banking to film production, what have you most learned about yourself in the last year?
It's such a good question. I would say one of my biggest learnings is don't ever doubt myself.
Yeah.
Don't doubt myself, and don't worry so much about what other people think. I kind of went off the radar for many months because I was making a film, and many wonderful friends like yourself would be often checking in, what are you doing? What are you up to? Let's grab a coffee. And I really wanted to learn the business of making a film.
Yeah.
And because it is a business. And while what people see on the screen is hopefully magical and wonderful, there is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. And I wanted to really apply myself to that.
Yeah.
And I cannot thank Josh enough for believing in me to bring me on as his partner in making this film. I often say he's the heartbeat of this film. And, he would have to often say, hey, you got this. It's okay. And I think not ever losing faith in myself, because how can other people believe in me if I don't believe in myself?
Absolutely.
It's been a really humbling year, and a year of just self-learning that I've really enjoyed and didn't realize how much I wanted and needed it.
Yeah. Time for a rebirth.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, that's great. Okay, so clearly you have navigated a life of learning and growth. What are you reading right now? And any books you recommend? I'll give you an example. One of my all-time favorites is Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. Are you familiar with that?
I am, yeah.
Yes.
It's a great one.
Yes. And that's the kind of book that it doesn't matter what business you're in, you'll learn something from it.
Yeah.
Anything that you're reading right now or that you've read that you would recommend?
It's a book actually just after I decided to get into this new career, and I was catching up with a dear friend, Tracy Holland, who's a very successful entrepreneur, and it's a book called Be Your Future Self. And the book's written by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and what I love about it is, don't wait to be your best self. In 6 months' time, I'll do this, or in 12 months' time, I'll do this. What do you see in 12 months that you can't do today? And this book sits literally beside me on the couch, and I'll often just flick to certain pages of it. And it was such a good read for me because it reinforced for me that the time is now.
Yeah.
And I will never be this young again, in this moment. And, for me, especially again, thinking about moments that my mom and my dad, set up for me, and moments that my brother and my dad were not ever able to have. Why am I talking about in 6 months' time or 12 months' time? The time is now. And so I try very hard to be focused on that. And that's what I love about this book. It really tells you, what are you waiting for? Gives me a kick in the pants.
Yeah. Well, I know we've got a clip of the Queen's Jewels. Do we have time for another question first, or shall we cue that up right now? We're going to do the clip right now.
Exciting!
Woohoo!
In the early hours of the morning, on July 31st, 1715, an elite Spanish fleet filled with invaluable treasures attempted to outrun a hurricane, chasing them through the Florida Straits. The fleet was overtaken by the deadly Cat 4 hurricane. It was trapped in the channel where the storm unmercifully pounded the treasure-laden convoy to pieces. 11 of the 12 vessels in the fleet were swallowed up in the hurricane's wrath. And if you're wondering what any of this has to do with our story, the answer is a short one. Everything.
Where are you?
Well, that certainly looks like a great adventure.
I
know
love it. I
it's
never
going to
get
be
sick of
super
it.
fun.